Krishnan from TCS with us here. He will give his lecture to you. And brief, of course, he is very well known and he needs no introduction, but I'll just introduce him to you. Mr. K. Ananth Krishnan is an M.Tech in Computer Science and an MSc in Physics from the Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi. He also has a bachelor's degree in Physics from Ferguson College, Pune, and he joined TCS in February 1988. Mr. Ananth is currently the Chief Technology Officer of TCS and chairs the TCS Corporate Technology Board. He is a member of the TCS Corporate Think Tank since 1999 and has led several strategic initiatives. He has been a principal architect and lead consultant in the architecture and technology consulting practice, and earlier the head of the TCS Systems Management and the System Software Group. He was named the Computer World's Premier 100 IT Leaders for 2007 and in InfoWorld's top 25 CTOs in the same year. He was named a distinguished alumnus of the Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi in 2009. He was an invitee to the quarterly management review with the TCS board from April 2000 to March 2004, and he has served on several advisory boards of software companies as well as industry and academic bodies and government committees. He has served on the organization committees of several national and international committees and conferences. He is a senior member of IEEE and of the Computer Society of India, as well as a member of the Association of Computing Machinery, and serves on the ACM Indian Council. He has been an invited faculty in the Department of Management Studies at the Indian Institute of Technology, Madras. So with these few words, I would like to welcome Mr. Ananth Krishnan to the university.
For those kind words, and it's a pleasure to be here. I'm going to be covering the following 4 things in the next hour and a half or so. First, we will have what some of you might be familiar with the management school case discussion method of learning. So I'm going to try to use that first 30 minutes to give you a feel for the way I think about corporate research. It's going to be done. Has anybody been in a management school case discussion session or running? So you're somewhat familiar with it. So I'll explain the method a little bit. It's quite interactive. I'll be using the whiteboard. You'll be doing a lot of the talking, and I'll be guiding the discussion. Hopefully at the end of that 30 minutes, you will have a feel for the way corporate research works. Because in your roles as deans and directors, you will be interfacing a lot with people like me. So it's important to understand the way we think. So we'll use that first section to get into that. Second, I will then dive deeper into one company, mine, and how I actually organize myself from whatever objectives that I have to meet. Thirdly, I will have a discussion on 6 or 7 topics that I believe will be important in your future roles and lives as leaders of academia, and we can have an open discussion. So that's the plan, roughly half an hour each for each of those 3, and we'll get to lunch now. Okay, now you would have received a Word document with these 2. This is the first page and there's the second page. If you haven't read the Word document, I'd just like you to spend a minute reading this first page, and then I'll flip to the second page. This is essentially the basis of the case. And if you've read cases from your management school colleagues, they try to capture a moment in someone's life, typically a business scenario. And the goal is to put yourself in the shoes of the actor. In this case, the actor is me, since I wrote the case lit for this purpose. So I am basically telling the story of something which happened in my life about a year plus ago, July of 2017. And there was an important shift which was happening in our world of business. And therefore, I was required to do something different. Right? So I'll just leave this here. Has everybody read the Word document? Okay, then you might like to read this, and I'll stay quiet for a minute, and then we will flip to the second page. Can I flip to the second page? Okay? So now you are me. Those 2 pages have given you a context of Ananth Krishnan in July 2017. This is what you have to help me with. So let's keep those in mind, but now I'd like to do what you do to your students, to make you into a student and help me along with this evolution. So what is the challenge that I'm trying to solve? Business context of TCS. What is happening? So TCS is doing well. So TCS past, can you give me some points on what is July 2017, what was TCS? So we are in IT, okay? And we're doing well?
Very well. Yes.
Doing very well. So number 1, 2, 3 in most parameters. globally competitive company. Okay. What is our business? So we work with industries, companies globally. And we do many things. We do applications, we do services, we sell them products, etc. etc. So these are my customers.
Research also.
I do outsource research for them, yes.
Training.
Bunch of things. Yeah. Services includes training, etc. What is happening to my customers? Why am I worried about suddenly in July 2017 that there is something fundamentally different that I need to do? Industry 4.0 is happening. So that is a big change. So what is Industry 4.0 driven by? What are the changes that it's driving? I can put that out here just so that they are in mind.
Driven by AI and machine learning.
So new technologies, so computing, AI, machine learning, mobility, augmented reality, a whole bunch of technologies. They are changing every industry. Manufacturing is changing, agriculture is changing, healthcare is changing, banking is changing. So suddenly, if my customers were listening to classical music, now they are all finding that their customers are changing to rock music. A bank which was very happy being a bank, now suddenly has to service their customers in every part of the world in a very different way. Even, I'm sure in this group, how many of you use now online or mobile banking versus staying with your branch? Nearly 100%. I have not been to my bank branch for years. That is the change which one aspect of life, which is banking is having, education is having, healthcare is having. The flood of technology is now moving at a pace where companies like us, which are servicing other companies, we now have to recognize that my customer is changing his behavior in a very dramatically different way. So that is the whole aspect of change that now, as a leader of this industry, I have been investing a lot in whatever it is that I do. I had that in the previous chart. So now, what all do I have right now? In the current state of TCS research and innovation, because my job is to create the basis on which my business colleagues can go sell these products, services, platforms, training, whatever, research, etc., to their global customers. They have to be globally competitive. And they are competing against IBM, they're competing against HP, they're competing with a whole bunch of people, and now we are in that category. So what is it that I have invested so far? In July 2017, what all did I have?
Research areas.
So I had research, first of all.
Innovation.
I had a way by which I can convert that research into new products and services. I had labs. What else did I have?
People. Trained people.
I had people.
Online examination.
That's a product that I'm giving. And that's the whatever, the ION platform. So those are products that I think. So
Network.
I have a network of
Innovators.
So this is important because in terms of labs and people, just to give you, this is not there in the case, but in the annual reports, which you would have hopefully had a chance to flip through, the reason I gave you that is it gives you an order of magnitude of what this is, the business. So the business of TCS is about 120,000 crores a year. And it's growing at about 10-15% every year. So you would have seen that because I gave you 2 annual reports, you would have seen the shift from one to the other. Out of this, 1.5% is what I get to spend. The actual number is there. Last year we spent 1,500 crores on R&D. Right? Now, that is, you can say it's a very big amount.
This is only in IT.
This is for TCS. TCS as a Tata Group is much bigger. Tata Group is about 25,000 crores of R&D spend. Or not 25,000, but 20,000. There are 100 companies in Tata Group. So this is 1,500 crores. Just to give you an order of magnitude. So you can say, oh, it's 1,500 crores. Or you can say it's only 1,500 crores. So that's why we created this network. We cannot do this alone. So we partner with academia, we partner with startups, we partner with technology players, we partner with Tata Group companies, and so on, so that I can amplify it. So open innovation is a necessary strategy. Now this is not a common strategy. If you look at many of my competitors, they have an integrated, I will invent everything from A to Z strategy. I was starting at a very different place. To put things in perspective, this is a reasonably large revenue. In US dollar terms, this is about $20 billion. The largest player who's my competitor, also a partner, is IBM. IBM is 4 times this size. And their R&D spend, they don't publish it anymore, but their R&D spend alone is $6 billion. And they are an integrated player. They very rarely partner with anybody. If I am now doing 1,500 crores, which is 250 million on my own, and I have to compete with somebody who's 6 billion, that's why I built this. I will partner so that I can amplify my 250 million to at least 4 times that size. Therefore, I am at least partially competitive. Right? So that's the mindset. So the network that is there is by strategy, by design, so that I can amplify. That's something that we have to look at. What is the bigger change that I need to do? What is this driving? Industry 4.0. Give me a feel for how this technology change is different from what technology changes were 30 years ago. What's the big factor you think is different?
The scale is changing.
Scale.
And D by dt is also small.
Speed. Cycle time.
Half-life.
Half-life. That if I invent a product, it's gone in 2 years, 3 years maximum. So the recovery time for my investment is much shorter than what it was. Previously, I could invent something, I have 5 years to commercialize, 10 years for it to have useful life. Life is good.
And very small gestation period.
Very small gestation period. That's part of this CBD. One other thing I'm looking for. This compute, AI, ML, mobility, there is something which is common now. Data is important. Yes?
Basically digital in the sense that its accessibility is much more different than what it was before.
Digital is fine. There is one other aspect that I'm sure you're seeing in your areas as well. How many of you are computer science people?
Decision making.
How many of you are not computer science people? The rest of you. But how much of at least one of these you're seeing in your research proposals?
This man-machine interaction you will get.
Man-machine, data, AI, AI in agriculture, data and something in healthcare, something in material science. AK is here. We are putting jointly in the lab that we have established here, we are putting computer science and material science together to invent new metallurgy. That interdisciplinary is very important. Now my whole philosophy that I had research areas, I had a compute research area, I had a systems research area and so on, has to change. I cannot afford to have that you are a computer science guy, so I hire you from IIT or Harvard or wherever, in the lab and you're doing software research. Oh, so you are a metallurgy person, you sit here in metallurgy and you do chemical engineering metallurgy research. That's gone.
Verticality is dissolving.
I have to push intersections. And the way in which research itself is organized has changed in a significant way. Now, you're beginning to now get some of these challenges that I had put down here. The strategic capabilities of TCS research and innovation. So what do I have to put in outcomes? I have to design something for speed, cycle time, half-life, and interdisciplinary. Using the base that I have already, which is that the company is in a position to invest. Let's be clear that there aren't too many companies, at least in India, who have the wherewithal to invest. You might have the intention to invest, but you need the necessary mindset. So when you are dealing with companies in your organizations, your institutes, you will have to find the industries that have this push to invest for their future. So they have a culture of research. They have a business which is driven by research and technology. See, if they are importing something, they are doing some value addition and selling it to the market and life is good, they may not have the mindset to do any interaction with academia.
Creativity.
Exactly. So you need to look for that culture. Secondly, there should be a business need for them, which is this. In my case, it is the fact that Industry 4.0 is dramatically changing my current business. वो कहते हैं ना डंडा होना चाहिए पीछे किसी इंडस्ट्री के पीछे, then only industry invests. Otherwise, industry will be happy in doing what they do. So in my case, there is a strategic change which is happening. My customers are changing. If I don't respond, they will go somewhere else. Because they are global. Any of my customers, whether they are Indian customers, whether they are Americans, whether they are British, they are Australian, they are Chinese, they are not tied to TCS. They are working with TCS, tomorrow they will work with somebody else. So I have to be constantly competitive with them on a daily basis. These are not small companies. They are the top 1,000 companies of the world which are my customers. So if you look at just the India context, some of you are familiar with ION. I mean, if tomorrow there is, instead of TCS ION, there is something else, you will go run your exams on that platform. If tomorrow State Bank of India says there is a better software product coming from somebody else, they will go to somebody else. They are not tied to TCS. So that competitiveness and the fact that my customers are changing is driving my research. I have to now produce this at much faster rates The most important thing is I have to scale. That is the mindset that is driving my research and innovation. Now give me some specific suggestions. You have seen a little bit of TCS from the outside, you have read these. Give me a couple of ideas for short-term things, that then you will check again. You will see my slides also. You can probably start guessing what I actually did as a plan and walk you through what plan I actually presented to the board and how it got approved. What do you think I should do differently for that scale, speed, time, half-life kind of thing? Any suggestions?
Shift from fixed platform to cloud computing.
Okay, very strong cloud. Very true. That's something that we have done. Yeah.
Training.
Training what?
Training the staff to understand
Exactly.
Reskilling people.
This is, in fact, that's a great point. As educators, you hit it on the head, and I will show you what we are doing with academia on this. There are 400,000 people in TCS. Now we are the largest employer other than the railways and the defense forces in this country. Largest private sector, of course. Now they were all in a world which was pre-industry 4.0. In the last 2 years since July, we have shifted 75% of them to the new world. It's probably the largest learning exercise in the world in one organization, in terms of person hours spent and so on. And we have done it in a way which is leveraging all this. So it has been done completely on an online, the same ION platform that you are familiar with has been used internally. Many of you have probably seen that or contributed to it. And it is a fully gamified learning interface. And it is not something that is theoretical, in the sense that they get marks and they get grades and they're happy. Because they have to learn this and they have to face their customer tomorrow morning. Because the exam is tomorrow morning, not end of semester. So they have to, there's that incentive to learn. So this is a very, very strong point that you have brought. What else should I do in the short term?
Collaborations.
Increase my collaborations. Now there was a point made earlier in Dr. Kaporkar's lecture also, that I am global. So for my collaborations, I am global as well. So one of the things that we have done in the last 2 years, actually it started just before July of 2017, probably a year before that, is that we have significantly scaled up our collaborations within India. For no other reason, because the center of gravity of the company is in India. So we said that let's invest more there. Otherwise I have partnerships with UC, with MIT, with the US, with Germany, with Australia, with all, everybody, the best in the world are keen to partner with me. Why? Because I'm successful. There's no other reason. If I'm not successful, nobody will partner with me. So that's a different one. But in India, we are significantly growing the collaborations and partnerships. What should I do for this? Cycle time and half. Any thoughts? See, I'll give you a feel, because when you are going to work with companies, you have to understand their cycle time. It will be different in steel, it will be different in agriculture, it will be different in healthcare, it will be different in different industries. In my case, you have correctly diagnosed that my cycle time is now 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. I will change. I will have a new product, a new service, a new technology will come. How do you respond, or do you think I should respond first, and then how will you respond?
Some sort of forecasting methodologies have to be there.
Exactly. So I have to now develop a very strong idea to execution. I have to push that ideas backwards with forecasting, and execution, I have to loop it back for cannibalization. What is it that I can reuse? I can't afford to throw away everything. I have to reuse it.
organizational restructure is also required.
Exactly. I have to become much closer to the customer and drive shorter cycles.
Yes,
This
sure.
whole thing. I have to do what is called agile. I have to build those short iterations so that in 6 months, 1 year, I can change something really quickly. That has a huge implication on you. I'll come back to that in the question discussions later. Because the half-life in academia is still driven by the academic life cycle. Right? You take 4 years or 5 years to train an undergraduate. Nothing wrong with it. They're all trained like that. 2 years to do a postgraduate. 4 years to do a PhD. So when I come to you with a problem, and you say, I will get this problem and I will hire 3 PhD students to work on it, I'm looking at a cycle time of 4 years before anything happens. I can't afford to wait 4 years. So you see the problem?
Yes.
And dimensional experts.
So you need expertise on one side, but I also need the intellectual input. So there's no solution for it. I'm just posing that as a problem.
Actually, the stability of the industry is economic driven.
Right.
So you are forced to be agile.
Correct.
While we can afford the luxury of not being agile, which is now actually beating us back. The time scales in which we respond, we are not able to just tune ourselves with what you have listed right now. This is a major problem which we face actually. We have to be agile and respond to market forces.
But there is hope in the hypothesis that you said. Push this boundary to the left.
And there is another aspect. There are certain problems on which the academicians have already have expertise. If you come to me for an area in which I already have a proven expertise, in consultancy mode I can give you on an instantaneous level.
Correct.
If I give you will be small. But a problem in which neither you know nor I know, so it is better to give a longer time horizon. So that kind of thing will require time to
Correct.
evolve. So it needs to be split up.
So that's what I basically have started doing, and now I'll give you a little bit of a feel for the way in which I've approached that problem. So I said short, medium, and long term.
Another thing is that some part of the product development which can be put in logic and argument, which can be coded, can be automated. So you can reduce the time scale of production, and that way speed and as well as the response to the changes in the requirement can be adapted as well.
Excellent point. That is the point that I was waiting for. I will use the power of those technologies, AI and so on, as a method to reduce my cycle time itself. How do I do that? Remember I said I have 400,000 people in DCs. 4 lakh people who are BTechs, MTechs, PhDs. This is a lot of intellectual horsepower. It's a very diverse pool. Just to give you a feel, 4 lakh looks very large. Let me break it up for you. There are 35% women now in DCs. Very consciously over the last 10 years, we have increased the diversity of our pool of people in multiple ways. Why? Because intellectual capital thrives on diversity. So there are 1,30,000 women. There are 35,000 international employees. They are Americans, they are Chinese, they are South Africans, they are Australians, they are from South America, they are Japanese. That's an enormous pool. And they are all good people. They are very sharp people because that's how we have hired. And so on. So there is that. There is a pool of capability which is available. With this retraining, we have now got that realigned. However, like all of you know, they are all doing something. They are earning that $20 billion. Can I now free up that capacity with automation? Right now, I have 10% overall people capacity freed up with automation. So if you do the arithmetic, 400,000 people, 1.5%, I have about 4,500 to 5,000 people in research and development. If I give back 10% productivity to the larger organization, I can now apply that additional 40,000 people either on the business or I can take them back into R&D. That is how we are looking at automation. And we are improving our own capacity for the future by building that capacity internally. So we are using AI to say that if there are 20,000 people in TCS who are running, let us say, networks and data centers for the largest companies in the world, our first product, Ignio, in that space has given me 70% productivity increase. So two ways of looking at it. 20,000 people can now manage 30% more business. But my business doesn't grow, I can do that same with just 6,000 people instead of 20,000 people. Fortunately for me, the first case is true, so I'm growing my business like crazy. Because I can go and compete with everybody in the world who are giving a people-oriented contract and giving it a machine-oriented contract. The point is that AI itself is now a force multiplier for me. So agility and AI are two big things that we are implementing as we speak in the organization. So now coming to the differentiated approach, coming to the way I presented it finally to the board. This is a management school technique since we're using a management framework. And hopefully all of you are scientists and engineers, so I can safely tell you joke. Management schools have this habit of representing everything in the world as a 2x2 matrix. Even Professor Kapotkar showed one chart which was somewhat like this. So there is this axis is what the market needs. Market needs today, market needs tomorrow. This is my capability. So this is capability tomorrow, capability today. So this is my capabilities today and what the market needs today. This is my current business, core business. I have to support this because this is paying my salary. It may not be the most exciting thing, this is changing, all that is fine, but I have to set aside some research, innovation, products, technologies, etc. to do this. What is this? This is market already needs this. I don't have the capability, so this is where I have to invent products and services for known needs. So here the only uncertainty is that I don't have the products or the capability, people, skills, technology, etc. I have to invent it, but the market is already there. Somebody is doing it, I have to compete in this. This is the known, and almost all of Industry 4.0 is there. And that shift is what is going like this. Eventually this will become core. 3 years from now, 2 years from now. What is this? I already have the capabilities. I have to generate the market to move in that direction. So this is what we call our platform strategy. I'll give you one very simple illustration in your context, since all of you are familiar with ION. You know how the 10th standard, 12th standard exams, CBSE especially, and many state boards are still conducted, paper and pencil, corrections, this, that, and so on. The technology to do it, capability-wise, is very well known. I don't have to invent too much here. But a very different market need has to be created so that the CBSEs or the IITs or the JEEs and CAT exam, GATE exam, all of them say, oh, this is a much better way of doing whatever we are doing right now. That's an example of a platform. In this case, the ION platform has substantially changed the way exams are done in this country. Whether exams are good or bad is a different question. But Today the class 10 and the class 12 exams with practically no errors can be declared in 4 weeks. Results can be declared in 4 weeks. Did I invent any groundbreaking new technology like what Dr. Kapoor said? No. I just repurposed existing capabilities and I pushed it out on a platform which is scaled fantastically. Each of those exams is 10 million students all over the country. Main is now 10 million. It's 1.5 million. And GATE is slightly bigger, and CAT is even bigger. So what have I done? I've just taken existing technology, turned it into a platform. So this is also a type of innovation. This is the future. So what do I now have? Like all good management schools, I have 4 targets. Sustain this, grow this, look for ideas like platforms, prepare for the future. So that 1500 crores now has to go in some proportion in each of these. So broadly speaking, I spend about 40% here, I spend about 25% here, I spend 20% here, and the balance is created by 15%. That's my split. Any given company split will be different. So when you're going to talk to companies, and you're going to interact with people like me who are driving corporate research, you should have an understanding of what is their business landscape, etc. Most of the companies that Dr. Kapoor had on his list, they are very safe here. People buy whatever they are making and they are happy here. But their competitors, if they are doing this fellow is not a good bet for you to chase and set up an R&D lab in the university. Because he's using the R&D lab, like he said, for tax purposes, not for doing research. He has to have a drive that my company will not survive if I don't do this, this, and this. Then you decide which one you want to play. Like you said, sir, that this could be just consultancy. This could be truly, because this I have time. I don't have to deliver this tomorrow morning. This I have to deliver tomorrow morning. This I can afford to wait 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years and do something. Because here is something I'm doing breakthrough, and for tomorrow's capability and tomorrow's business, I'm inventing something totally new, which TCS will say we are the world's first to do this. So that is this part. This part is an option. You can be creative with the industry to say, okay, we have the capability already. Let's say that we've invented something fantastic. Capability already exists. You need only a market outlet for it. Comes here. So now you have a differentiated approach for dealing with corporate. Say, boss, I can do this. This is the backdrop of what I'm going to talk to you in the next 30 minutes, and we'll have more to say in this. Any final thoughts on this? The case method, I hope you were.
So admissions can work in this third quadrant, those who want more time.
This is the natural quadrant for academics.
Yes.
However, you are not only academics. Each of your institutions is looking for, example, incubators. Your incubators will come here. Each of you are looking for ways in which you can prepare your students for new technologies and be relevant. That is this quadrant. Research, yes, I agree with you. This is where the skill that you are building, I mean, your academic institutions are teaching, entrepreneurship, and research. This is teaching. This is research. That's all. Yes, ma'am.
How do you change the mindset of your employees for this transition? Because that is important even in the academic scenario.
The corollary is that in your case, top-down works very simple. You have an idea, you board approves it, and it goes down. In our case, nothing top-down works, more or less. So that's one of the major issues which we have actually. I mean, we know that the third quadrant is what we are comfortable, we do it, and that's our thing. And how to sort of start filling up
partially agree with it that in companies, top-down is easier to do. It's not easy to do. How do we do it? We basically put in what we call selfish interest. Selfish interest in companies is both what we call soft recognition and hard recognition. Hard recognition is promotion, salary, bonus, which is very well known. That's something that we do well and we continue to do well. Soft recognition is peer recognition. It is very small things like, for example, we run these, to the larger point of freeing up the capacity, we run now hackathons and ideathons across the company to say, in this industry 4.0, what are the things that we should be doing? And sometimes I run the challenge, sometimes my business colleagues run it, sometimes customers run it. And if that somebody gives that idea, they go straight into the entrepreneurship quadrant. Because the idea is already there, it just needs to be put into a business shape. So then that becomes an incentive for somebody to say that, if I contribute in this fashion, I can get 6 months time and funding from the company to do my virtual startup. And if it works, then it's a very different career path from where I joined. That becomes an incentive.
Do you think intrapreneurship is something which you are promoting?
Exactly. So that's one example of how that culture issue changes. So you have to do hard things, you have to do soft things. It is not always top-down rundown. Top-down rundown is nice, but it doesn't always work. It's just like you, I also have to convince people in a certain way. Any other thoughts on this? I hope I was able to give you a feel for what and how I think. I'm using TCS as an example in this case. So when you are dealing with industry, you will hopefully have some preparatory view of what that industry is. Should you pursue? How are they thinking? What is their market? What is their prerogative? What is their priority? What are their equivalent of the 4 quadrants? Are they being changed by something that you can help? In my case, I'm being changed by Industry 4.0. And I think that many of my customers, that is my industry, because I deal with a lot of industries, services, manufacturing, aerospace, defense, the whole lot. All of them are seeing this change. Many of them will be your targets also. When you go and ask somebody, say, give me a research project, hire my students, put an entrepreneurship cell in my thing, they are your targets as well. That's why this is a phenomenon that you'll have to get used to as you deal with it. And that interdisciplinary part is important. This is going to happen in many industries, not just the IT and the tech industry. It's happening in IT and tech today, but it will happen everywhere else. Yes?
How do you take care of the consequences of innovation? Like whatever they are doing, basically we're challenging something and we're trying to improve actually.
Yeah.
So what kind of methodologies you adapt to see that the innovations are going to fructify and yield the results and the way you want?
That's what they have tried to do here, the idea to execution cycle. I'll show you a couple of slides on that. See, there is no linearity to that transition from an idea to end product or end service or outcome. Some things will work, some things will not work. You have to be able to say no also. However good it might have seemed at the beginning, it doesn't seem to give the result, so you move somewhere else. So that's the first basic thing, that there is no guarantee of success. The second part of it is, how do you ensure that that success is actually in a positive, net positive way, and not just the way it is. There we are not good at it. See, unintended consequences of technologies. There are good and bad, and in many cases the bad is probably unforeseen. So if you take Bitcoin as an example, the fact that Bitcoin is a great example of algorithms invented in the 1970s, which have turned into a business model in 2010 or thereabouts. So today now blockchain technology is being a very different, hopefully better way of than Bitcoin itself. That's an example of technology, consequence, big positive, big negative consequence, and now something else is happening which may be better. So technologies, I don't think, are to be blamed by saying you invented a technology which became bad. It could be, but we have to find a way to do that in a network. And there is an aspect which we also have to be careful about. All of these technologies exist in a social context. And when I'm doing that forecasting point that was made earlier, we are now using two important vectors in that forecast. One vector is what is the likelihood of adoption of these technologies by very large populations in the future. Because what is common to all of these, why they have grown so much, is that mass adoption, especially through mobile and cloud and digital and so on, has actually driven investment in these technologies. Right? So we are now looking for that as an additional factor. That is this a technology which will be mass adopted or not? An important factor that we're putting. Second factor that we're putting is looking at societal trends. So for example, now there is a backlash against data on the web, especially in Europe. Facebook and others, and even in India, fake news in the US, all kinds of backlash is coming. So we are watching that. So we are saying that what is the societal response to some of the digital technology? Is that going to be a barrier? So there's a plus and a minus that we are looking at every technology. So the forecasting is a little bit more sophisticated than just by saying that let's just do this and we'll worry about the consequences.
How much you are collaborating with, let us say, social scientists? I mean, I'm just picking up that point further. I mean, people look for solutions, they don't look for technology. I mean, when I go to the market, I'm looking for a solution. So understanding my mind, how do you do that?
So let me use that as a proxy to jump into what I've actually done. So the answer is yes, I'm doing something there.
And before you go there, can you kindly define how TCS defines innovation, specifics?
Innovation is a new product, a new service, or a new social impact. Right? So we kept it very simple. New product, new service, new social impact. There is a subscript under that it should be substantial, not point. That's innovation.
And social impact you are measuring by the number of people affected, or let's say the value addition in his own, let's say, economic condition, or I mean, are there parameters or?
Right. So scale is the first one. Number of people is a very strong vector of that. Second is the qualitative aspect of that. So there are many projects. I think I have a slide on that. So this is now let's jump into the actuals. So this is facts and figures. I'm not going to read through this. This is what most of it we have covered in the couple of things that I don't think I covered. The extent to which we publish, we patent. The research scholar program, are you all familiar with it? The computer science research fellowships that we started about 7-8 years ago. I think many IITs, NITs, IITs use it. It's right now India's biggest privately funded PhD scholarship program. So I really encourage, if you're not familiar with it, ask your PhDs, especially in computer science, now computer science plus related disciplines, they can apply for this. It's one of the most competitive PhD scholarships.
They can apply before taking admission or after taking
Ideally, it is after, so that the thesis and the guide are also selected, because we give a lot of weightage to that.
So there would be a right from TCS also.
Possibly. It's an option. Many people use it, some don't.
So it has to be done before taking admission of registration.
There is a very well established program been running for 10 years now. About 400 scholarships have been given out.
What is the amount of fellowship?
It's been increasing over the years. Right now it is substantially more than the government of India. It's about 35,000 rupees. But it is less than the PMR, which is about 70,000. So it's in between. So we calibrate it carefully. Okay. So now I'll give you what I actually did. So this is based on the plan that I presented. So this is the answer to the case study that I walked through. So basically I put my strategy along 5 V's, as we call it: visionary, velocity. The speed part is captured in velocity. because it's important. I debated whether to call it speed or velocity. I use velocity not just because it starts with a V, but velocity is a vector. Direction is speed is not. Variety, value, and vibrancy. Okay. So we basically have created 10 research areas now from 3 that we had before. And you notice to the point, sir, that you made, this group, behavioral, social, and business science, is a brand new group. So this has the social scientists, economists, behavioral scientists, and also computer scientists who are looking at the aspects of consumption of technology from the people perspective. So I'm partnering here with National Institute of Design, for example, with School of Design at IIT Bombay, IDC, IIT Bombay, with Royal College of Art. Yale University has a Institute of Network Sciences, which is again very interdisciplinary. So we are now trying to understand human behavior as it happens in the context of large populations. Many of these experiments are done within TCS. For 400,000 people is a large population. So, for example, right now we are running a very big study with MIT on stress in the workplace. Because that's a big factor for us. More than physical health related lost productivity, stress is becoming a challenge for us. First we have to understand it, then we have to put the mitigations. The longer term for that is that mental health in India and rest of the world is going to be as big an issue as physical health. It's undocumented, it's a completely greenfield area. Only country which has done significant work on mental health is Japan. Because they have aging populations and they have people who are single, widower, 80 plus. Mental health is a massive issue for them. So they have invested for 15 years. We are now learning how to do that. I've got an intent to work with University of Tokyo also. So that's the group that is there. The rest are conventional, but there are now intersections. This diagram is showing those intersections. And I've put the AI, data decision sciences, deep learning at the core of everything. So this group is the largest group, but they are also connected with every other group. So if you try to correlate this to your department structures, this is my bioinformatics, biotechnology, genomics. So some of you might have School of Medicine, etc. This is metallurgy, chemical engineering. Dr. A.K. Singh here is a former member of this group. He's a strong collaborator with this group. They are deeply tied with this group. This is your electronics, robotics, embedded systems. This is cybersecurity. These are all conventional computer science groups. Cybersecurity, software systems, compute systems, and so on. And this is the AI. So this, I think, is the way we have rearranged ourselves a little.
Physical sciences include engineering sciences.
Yes. So for velocity, I have 2 examples. One, we established and scaled up. The incubator was always there in TCS. We have scaled this up substantially. So this is ideas from inside, outside, and so on. So the incubator has existed since 2008. This is now at least 5 times bigger than what it is. So that is helping me drive at least the cycle time. My target is 2x, but now they are showing that they could be even better. In the past, just to give you a feel, from the original research idea to a product or a service, my cycle time was 7 years. This was 2000 till 2014-15. My target is to first bring it down to 3 years. And then I will get hopefully faster in some projects at least, so that I have a population spread, which I'm pushing out things within a year. This is the kind of engineered life cycle that will help me do it. So you can see most of you must be familiar with the TRL model, the technology readiness model. NASA and others pioneered it. We have adapted it for our work, because the bad thing about TRL model is it takes time. In many industries, the TRL model from 1 to 9 itself will take 7 years, 10 years, 15 years. I don't have 7, 10, 15 years, but I have basically created them as 3 separate phases: explore phase, enable phase. Very broadly, explore is research, enable is incubation and engineering, exploit is the business scale-up. Each of these 3 phases has its own time. So research phase typically is still a year and a half, 2 years, 3 years by itself. So I'm pushing that out into the left. I'm not starting the clock on research until it reaches a certain level of maturity. So if I do a research collaboration with the university and that takes 3 years, that's outside this cycle. The moment it comes into this cycle, that has to finish within a year, year and a half. The remaining 2 cycles, I will do it in less than 6 months. So that's a way by which I do that. There are lots of intermediate things. The entire process is PCS internal, but that's, trust me, it is there. To enable that acceleration to happen. This is the network that existed before 2017 itself. It was established in 2004 as a co-innovation network. If you remember, it's there in the case of basis on what we already were doing, engaging with the startups, academia, and customers, and the larger ecosystem as a philosophy across many different areas and technologies. This is the academic ecosystem. Now, there are 2 or 3 messages here. This is academic as well as startups. The red ones, anchors, are the academic institutions. As you can see, it is fairly global. So I work with broadly North America, Europe, including Israel, India, of course, and then with Australia, Japan, Singapore, and so on. Both with the startups as well as with the universities. Here is how I interact with universities. Let me spend a little bit of time because I think this would be useful for you to not just understand what I do, but use this as a template to understand how, when you deal with other industries, where you should engage with. So first of all, I have at the bottom a pyramid of what I call my engagement models. So there are 4 levels of engagement that I have with universities. At the most basic level, the C1 level, we'll actually do an MOU with an institution which enables students, faculty, my researchers, and my teams to interact with each other without too much of a problem. And that program is supplemented by my larger academic interface program, which is specifically focused, and many of you might be familiar with this, which is specifically focused on hiring and skills. So that core part that I talked about. Now this is running across India and across the world in a significant way as an engagement program. And there are huge number of institutions which are only on the hiring part. You can see 700 institutions across India where we do hiring, and there are 703 outside India. And there is FDPs, there is internships, there is board of studies, there is industrial visits, and all kinds of interactions. It's a very serious program run jointly by me and by my HR teams. The head of HR and I jointly sponsor this, and the engagement is pretty strong at the level of learning, skills, and interaction. That is what C1 is about. That's the base level. 9 of those C1s are purely for research. And for skills, it is 1400 global. Now back to research. C2 is where there is an MOU with a single faculty member. Either a consultancy MOU or a single project MOU or a sabbatical MOU, whatever it might, but it is typically with individual faculty that interaction happens. Why do we have this level? Because it is important for people to actually go back and forth and listen to each other and get onto the same wavelength. So the bottom one was just informal interactions, workshops and all that. This is actually inviting somebody from your institution to TCS lab and come and spend 4 weeks with us, 6 weeks with us. Or somebody from TCS research will come and spend 6 weeks. Somebody from TCS might come and do a PhD with you. That is what that 42 institutions are leveraging right now. Okay, so it is a MOU driven, and there is actually funding and so on available for travel. If there's an international institution, then people will come here, they need airfare, they need to stay here, all that we take care of, that's not a problem. But that is necessary. Then it goes up to C3, where there is a lab which gets established in your institution, where there is a serious research agenda, and that could be a 1-year agenda, 3-year agenda, and whatever might be the length of that whole story. Typically, it is with one department, one center, one capability, etc., etc. There is investment on your side, so there will be a faculty member, a principal investigator, funding. Many of those imprint programs and so on typically happen like this. We are working with half a dozen more imprint things as well. C4 is the consolidated level. That means there are multiple such interactions with a single institution. So there is an institution level MOU where typically the head of the institution, myself and others, there's a governance mechanism, there is consolidated funding, a research cell gets established. We've done this in India with the 5 older IITs, IISc and ISI only. And internationally there are 2 more like this. So there are only 9 institutions where we feel it is worthwhile for us to do that. Otherwise, the C3 level is where a lot of the basic action happens. C2 of course. So this is my method. As I said, it's important to actually do that. You can see some of the names of various institutions, whether they are MIT or the IITs, there is various other things which are going on. So that is the seriousness with which an ecosystem has to be built. I'm not saying all companies will do this, but if they are at this level of maturity, you should know what they are expecting at each level. Expectations are very different. Any questions on this? Or I think this is an important chart for this audience. Yes.
See, up to C3 you are open to all the institutions, majority. Why at C4 you are having this restriction?
It is not restriction, sir. It is just my capacity to execute it. See, this I opened it up in 5 years ago. I had an MOU only with IIT Bombay to try out the C4 in India. But I also had to learn how to do it.
So at C3 level, once something comes out in collaborative research, so you are closing it there, and under C4 you want to take up with these institutions for further?
No. C4 is essentially multiple C3s exist. So I might work with, in IIT Kanpur, I work with the materials metallurgy department, I work with the robotics electronics department, I work with the security department in computer science.
Okay.
So there are 3 labs which are being funded by TCS. So we have created a C4 level so that the director and I'm not on the committee, but there is a steering committee which is formed so that the director, dean of research, etc. can collaborate and take a view across these projects. Right. So multiples, look at it as C4s are basically multiple C3s. For a given lab, it will be the same. The level of rigor will be the same, but since there are multiple, we have established a higher level of governance.
Basically, the cell can, TCS cell can, like we are an ISRO cell. Similarly, TCS cell, several departments participate in the
You hit it on the head. ISRO cell is what was my model.
Okay.
Now, ISRO has done it in many more institutions. I have done it only in the 5 major IITs, IISc and ISI. That's it.
ISRO has expanded recently.
Exactly. They are the pioneers of this model. I have just taken the best of that and done.
Institutions are supposed to establish TBIs. In what mode do you support TBIs at institutions given this context?
TBIs are essentially at the C2 level in our mind because they tend to be more focused on an entrepreneurial, incubatable, short cycle idea. And so we are taking those up, and I have not actually done a PBI MOU yet, but I'll be happy to.
You are open.
No problem, absolutely.
Are you also adopting startups? I mean, in the sense that
I'll come to that. So the startup ecosystem worldwide is something that I'm using as my shortcut for this. So there is a market need. I don't have the capability. If a startup has that capability, I go to market with the startup. So I partner with the startup. I don't buy the startup usually. I do buy startups, but there are 3,000 startups that are on my database. So if I find a market opportunity, I'll give you one example. There is a French bank which has floated a tender for upgrading their security infrastructure to quantum key cryptography. I don't have quantum key cryptography research, forget about a product. There is an Australian startup called Quintessence Labs which has got that capability. They spun out of ANU, Australian National University. They are on my database because my scanner picks it up. So now this small startup in Sydney has no idea that there is a tender like this in France. So I am the bridge, I am the prime. They have become a subcontractor to me. We have bid jointly. If we win, it's a big thing for the startup. They won a contract which they had no even idea. For me, I have fulfilled the capability gap with practically no investment. So multiply this by 3,000 is what I have.
It's a kind of a startup aggregator.
Exactly. Yeah. So the coin startup ecosystem has 3,000 startups in Israel, in India, in all over the world, Australia and China and so on. And I basically am using them as a short. If there are 5 such things that I do with that same quantum key cryptography fellow, I look at it and say maybe I should buy this one, which I will, or I may. So that is the way in which the startup ecosystem works. So I don't put investment in them and say, and so on. That confuses them. I basically say I can give you access to the global market. Okay.
So, if I may ask, what sort of sharing, revenue sharing is done?
100%. In the sense that, see, there is a markup that I will do for what I will do. See, the tender, to give you a feel, not to spend too much time, the tender is a multi-million euro tender for 10 years. Because when the bank installs quantum key cryptography, they want not just the technology, they want to integrate it to the rest of the bank. All that I will do. The technology comes from, let's say you are the startup and your license cost for that software product that you built is, say, 1 million euro order. You will get a 1 million straight. I will get the remaining 9 million of the contract is mine. Alternative learning is alternative lending is a way by which what in India we call non-banking financial institutions. There is a plethora of these in the US, in China, in Europe and so on. They're not yet there in India because of regulation. But these are channels which are, let me call it a modern Sahukar.
Using IT.
Using technology. So the way in which it works is the following, that if you are a person who has some extra money, you put that money into this platform and say that my expected return in this money, if I put it in a bank, is 4%. If I put it in FD, it is 7%. If I put it in mutual fund, it is 10%. Can you give me 12%? You might say 15%, you might say 20%. So you put your money into his account. The same platform on this side has borrowers. He will qualify the borrowers based on risk, on propensity, track record and all that, and that is available to him because of the large volumes that they have. He will match A and B to the extent that he will not put 100 rupees that you invested into Ananth Krishnan's company. Because Ananth Krishnan goes bust, you're finished. He He will take 5 rupees from you, 5 rupees from you, 5 rupees from you. He will spread the risk on this side, and he will spread the risk on the other side. So the chance that the risk model that he's building is that not all borrowers and not all lenders will fail at the same time. And this is running at scale. There is a company in China called Dianrong, which is, because China is semi-regulated, they are Dianrong Ant Financial. Ant Financial today is the world's largest financial company. They are bigger than any bank, they are bigger than anything, they are grassroots. So if you are a laborer wanting 10 rupees to buy vegetables so that you can, at the end of the day, you can make 20 rupees on the vegetable sale, Dianrong will lend you. No bank will lend you. That's why I call it a modern Sahukar. They are actually a Sahukar, but they are doing it at enormous scale and technology. So that is what we are researching to see how does it work in different contexts. There are companies like that which we work with. And it's a very different model that is happening. Okay, so variety, I think we've got that. Now let's look at vibrancy, which is the way in which the 400,000 people in TCS have to be now brought into this. As I said earlier, the 1.5% that I get, 1,500 crores, is a big amount. TCS is growing, so the absolute amount will grow. But I cannot do everything with it. So I now have to tap into my customers on one side, internal, engage with coins and with innovation champions. This is a new role that we create. The earlier point was made, how do we incentivize people? So we've created a role called an innovation champion, which basically says that you now are a technologist who knows articulation about technology, and you're an entrepreneur who can now go and do this with stakeholders. So it's a very new role. It's a experiment that they're running, and it is doing fairly well. There are about 30 of them now in the company. These are some examples of how all this happens, so let me just skip that. I'll just give you one point. There is you see the Japanese thing there. This Japanese insurer came to us with a challenge. And it's interesting just to give you a feel for what kind of challenges that we have to deal with. Now, Japan, as you know, is a very prosperous country. Nearly total penetration of insurance, life insurance as well as property insurance. Nearly, they are one of the highest insured countries in the world. That's on one side. And this customer of mine is the number 3 largest insurance company in Japan. They are also the most earthquake-prone country in the world. Natural disaster, if you add, they are the most natural disaster-prone country in the world. Tsunami, earthquake, storm. It's a 100% certain occurrence. So insurance companies have built that into their risk models. There is also a certainty that a severity 9 earthquake or above will hit Tokyo sometime. They know it. Only thing they don't know is when it will happen. A severity 9 earthquake in Tokyo is going to be devastating. That also there. In spite of the fact that it is one of the most earthquake-proof cities in the world, there will be anything from 10 to 40% of Tokyo will be severely damaged. These are the givens. High insurance penetration, high propensity for disasters, and the chance of a mega disaster is non-zero, it is non-trivial, it is 10-20% probability, it might happen tomorrow. This insurance company says, given this, I need a competitive advantage in my market. I am the number 3 player. If I am able to recover my business within minutes of that major earthquake, and I am able to, why do people go to an insurance company? So that in the case of a bad event, they get a claim as early as possible, with no questions asked. this challenge that he threw at us, which my research team worked, and I opened it up for all of TCS to work, and 400,000 people, means 4,000 people actually worked on this challenge to say, when an earthquake happens, can we give this insurance company a system which will be back online within minutes and automatically starts paying out claims? Okay, so that the customer says, "Hey boss," and they are in a tough situation, maybe their family members are dead, maybe their house is destroyed, whatever, any condition, they are able to see the money in their account. If they have got the money in the bank, it still exists, those assumptions. They are able to see it within minutes, they're saying the claim is paid. So this fellow's thing was that I want this product and I will advertise it. So in Japan, if you say something, you have to do it. If the train is 30 seconds early, the train fellow comes and apologizes to you. Because today my train is on 30 seconds ahead of schedule, so I have to apologize. So it has to be bulletproof in that sense. Can we design a system like this which will be a product which says that I will be the first one to pay you back in the case of this kind of disaster? And I will use that to get more business. So this is a challenge. So you can think about it, we can discuss over lunch what are the solutions, but this is the kind of thing that we have to worry about. Okay, last point. On value. How do I measure value? And this was a question which came earlier also. I measure value on the left with social impact. And you can see many things that we do. We're doing elderly care, we're doing research scholar program, I mentioned the incubator, agriculture, we're doing a bunch of things that we're doing. These are all for social impact. I measure them on the scale of social impact that can happen. Right, so we are tackling some very important problems. So blindness is one, agriculture is one, rural health is another, and so on. So I can't spend time. And this side, of course, I have to serve my business. Those three quadrants that you know. So all the global customers that we work with, you see big name, Rolls-Royce, Total, all these people are quite happy with what they do. So that is what I actually put the 5 V's together, and we are delivering that, and now we are calibrating all the things. Now let's come to the last section. This is again a set of discussions on what I have observed in global academia. As you can see, I work with many of your colleagues across the world. So I'm going to have 5 or 6 topics and I'll show you what I'm seeing. These are best practices or lessons learned, and you can use them as appropriate. We'll have a discussion around each of them. So what are these topics? Down here. So let me just jump into each one at a time. So the first is impact. And this is a challenge that all academic institutions face. How do you measure impact? You know how I measure impact. Social impact, business impact, simple, done. You have to worry about the other dimensions on Dr. Kapoorkar's chart. Yes. Pasture quadrant, Bohr quadrant, and Edison quadrant. And there is a quadrant which is a no quadrant also. So, and you can see that there is various things that people are trying. From an industry perspective, I can see 2 or 3 interesting aspects which are emerging, especially with institutions in the US, not so much in Europe. India, it's actually better than Europe, where there is a conscious push for research with diverse stakeholders. So it is not just one industry with academia or one institution, but there is a diversity factor which is coming in different aspects. A good example of that are schools like MIT, which of course does many good things. There they have a conscious metric in addition to academic publications. They are measuring co-authored publications with industry. And those publications may not be in academic journals or academic conferences, they are in industry journals and industry conferences. So it's happening in much larger numbers at MIT than any other school that I've seen. both the engineering side as well as, of course, the business school fellows have been doing this for a very long time. But the engineering side also, we are seeing a lot of requests coming for co-authoring, saying, like this Japan thing that I mentioned. Japan, University of Tokyo will never publish this. Say, "Arey, isme kya was?" But I'm fairly sure MIT will publish it if there is something useful which comes out. So think about it. I mean, in your scheme of things, in your institutions, that if you can say that an industry co-authored publication in an industry journal or an industry conference has also got weightage, that would be a factor to drive certain types of publication. And you might like to use, my version of Dr. Kapotkar's chart is their industry impact, social impact, ethical impact, and further research-oriented impact. So there is that as well. The second trend that I'm seeing is what I am calling not interdisciplinary, but anti-disciplinary. Now, what is anti-disciplinary? So, anti-disciplinary essentially is creating a space within your institution which is not explicitly, of course, one discipline. This is not mechanical engineering, this is not tribology, this is not computer science. It is not even a traditional interdisciplinary center. It is a center which basically is a space. There are rules by which a faculty member or a student or a postdoc or a PhD or a master's or somebody can come and use that space. Now, this kind of co-working space is becoming very popular across the world, including India.
Is something like research park coming up?
No, very different. It's a space. I mean, it could be just this building. There are rooms available, there are free format seats available, there are whiteboards available, there is computing equipment. If you need a science workbench space, that is available. And there is a mechanism by which that gets allocated to a group for anything from 1 day to 30 days to 60 days to 90 days, but nothing more than that. The pioneer in doing this in an academic institution was MIT. Nicholas Negroponte established the so-called Media Lab in MIT, and now it has grown much more. And Joey Ito now runs it. I've been there. We are members of that as well. It is an anti-disciplinary lab. So basic rule there is when a faculty member comes there, they are not carrying their department badge with them. They are bringing some students, perhaps 2-3 faculty have come together. There is a space where they can do something for a fixed period of time, and they do academic work in that context. Now, what is the advantage of this? The advantage is that some of these Industry 4.0 things that I talked about are by nature not confined to any one side. In fact, they are not confined to any side. They are multi to the power n. And that is not possible in many traditional constructs. So this is sort of forcing people to come together to solve problems which are bigger than any of them can solve. And they're trying to use, you mentioned the technology business incubator kind of a culture also, to say this is not traditional interdisciplinary research, this is translational work which needs multiple people to come. So this is an experiment that is happening. Ohio State has set up an analytics center like this. So they bring people from computer science, of course, but they also bring people from all other engineering disciplines and say that can you think about data in a different way now that you're all together. And then industry comes in, they pose some problems, and they are trying to jumpstart that kind of. So this I have not seen anywhere in India. So since I had this audience, I thought I'd guess.
There's a topologically similar thing, in fact, was thought by the founders of this institute. If you see many of the people have come from outside also, there are no departmental buildings. There is a faculty building, and then there are southern labs, western labs, where different departments are there. And just because of the proximity, for example, I am from mechanical engineering, I have published papers with somebody sitting across the board is who is a mechanical engineer, somebody sits upstairs who is a physics person. So I'm just trying to give an example. Within this institute, there are actually no department buildings, more or less.
So perhaps this is an American thing then.
Yes.
Your heritage is American. Absolutely. As I said, I've seen this only in the US. In Europe also I don't see this. In Japan I don't see it. Australia, India, I've not seen it, you see, but it's something which intrigues me as collaboration as a key. And many individual pieces come together to solve bigger problems. So I don't know how it will work even in the US, in Berkeley, they have tried doing this and it has not worked well. Somehow it worked in MIT, but not in the West. So we'll have to see. Yes, sir.
What I find, let's say 20 years back, today people are alienated, they are secluded themselves. So this is because of your time constraint, because of technological enabling. So it is basically to the barriers which are created by the modern life, I think they are trying to break it. Now you created that, now you are trying to break it. I don't know what about that.
Well,
because
I guess humanity always
we don't
learns.
have time to mix, we don't have time to think.
Humanity always goes through these cycles, and I agree.
Basically reinventing the wheel.
Correct. And if you see how today's younger generation thinks, they are inherently in this model. Because they like to collaborate dynamically, form a group, so do something and then move on and do something else. So in a way it is anti-disciplinary to begin with. Right? So perhaps they will get it right. We have got it wrong. Third trend that I'm seeing, I call it back to class. This is a conscious attempt which goes beyond the traditional summer school, winter school, attending conferences, which is a traditional way that faculty have kept themselves updated. There is no training program for a tenured professor. You could be a tenured professor and it's up to you to learn and keep yourself updated in your field. I'm seeing many different institutions trying to emulate what industry does. See, in industry, we don't have the culture that you have of constant learning. Person is not forced to learn unless something like what we did, saying, boss, if you don't learn, you're finished. Then there is an incentive to learn. So now there is interest in building that bridge with what is happening, and I think Professor Kapolkar also said this in his talk. Bring industry to teach, go teach industry people, spend a sabbatical, send your students and postdocs to industry, get industry people to come and do PhDs with you. This kind of virtuous cycle, many schools in the US have started with. This has begun to happen at scale in Germany, through the Fraunhofer and the Max Planck Institutes. I think we need to do something like that here as well. There's an institutional way by which, it's good to say industry interaction, there will be some dean of research and all that, which is fine. But there has to be on the industry side and on the institution side a mechanism by which this can happen. If a faculty wants to go and spend a sabbatical with TCS, I have C1, C2 and all that, so perhaps I'll be able to do it. But if you want to go spend time with Tata Motors, they may not have a program. What is their incentive to say this is the good things that I'm doing in automotive? They are doing some fantastic things in automotive. In that. So that I think is, I'm calling it back to class, both sides. Industry has to come here and take classes, and you have to come there and learn as well in the appropriate mechanism. Any thoughts on any best practices that you are already doing in this?
So we have a close connect with Vedanta, for example, Hindustan Digital Limited, wherein we are continuously engaged, to train their cadres, geotechnical cadre, for example, that they are going to deeper mines and all. And then we call them also to, educate our students of final year and graduates. So that's happening for some long. ISM than that.
Excellent.
So we have progress on the that professors of practice, we take
That's a good program.
So take it out and we pay them, everything.
Yeah.
That's it.
we are engaging with the industry. One is short-term courses of about a week time, which are specifically topical and where industry is facing problem or would be facing problem. So we identified with them, and then we are running it about 10 to 12 courses per annum. TCS people have also come there. The timely issue. Then we had, and we are engaging industry people, past former CMDs and directors are our visiting professors and adjunct faculty. They are taking full course. It's not just giving few lectures. Then I have also negotiated with one of the current directors who has said that I will come for one full day and share my technological understanding with your faculty and students.
So it is happening now. One question. So there was an earlier thing on the earlier supporter session on the role of the industry recognition, Bhatnagar Award, etc., etc. So, I'm an INA fellow, and I'm also no longer on the governing council, but we've been debating this for a long time. See, INA fellows are the recognized engineers of this country. And there is a INA distinguished professor scheme, there is an INA visitor scheme and so on, but they don't seem to work well. They do work, individuals are doing stuff. Maybe we should discuss this over lunch as well. What role can INA play? Because there are 800 fellows, and all of us are willing to do stuff, but either I'm too busy or nobody will ask me, so nothing happens. So I think
actually there is if you see the whole landscape of academics and industry in India, there is a gross mistrust and disrespect on the other side. Typically, if you talk to industry individuals who do not have much exposure, I'm not talking about your level because you are exposed to academics and you are interacting with academics. Industry thinks academicians are totally theoreticians, they can't give me any solution. And academicians think ये लोग बात सुनेगा नहीं, कब का पढ़ेगा वही करेगा. तो ये जो gross and baseline है ना, उसको break जब तक नहीं करेंगे.
ये mechanism, one mechanism to do.
No, the corollary to that is there is one problem. The other problem is that persons who spend time with doing industrial things are not recognized by their own community people. I mean, if INE can do something for that, I think you can take that message to INE. I mean, we undermine our own professional, our own colleagues who are.
That is very strongly reflected in the INA fellowship itself.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you have to break this mindset that feathers are only one color.
That's why the black to cross is both ways.
But there is a change of perspective according to me. Let's say if it was 20 years back, today I think more collaboration, more thing going, but it's at a slow rate. And maybe that is our natural, character to be a little slow, and it will take the time. But there is a change.
He's talking about scales and half-life cycle. You see Chinese people have.
See, each country is having their cultural value.
Yeah, so let's I got more points to cover and then we'll break for lunch. This is, I call it disrupting education itself, and I think there has been a good amount of discussion on this in different ways. I've talked about ions and all that, but I'd like to spend a little bit of time on changing the learning process itself. Now, there has been a lot of debate on flipped classrooms. NPTEL has done a lot of stuff, and all the other platforms, edX and Coursera and other global platforms. There is a new trend that I'm seeing, which is called MicroMasters. IIM Ahmedabad is offering it for working professionals to have at a subset of a master's program the ability to earn a sequence of credits, each of which is valuable in itself, but if you assemble a good subset, you actually get a degree as well. Right? So the management schools are beginning to do this. Outside India, University of British Columbia in Canada and MIT are also doing microcredit based learning. You might like to consider this because see, I was on the board of IIT Bombay, the BOG for 3 years, and before that 3 more years at NIT Delhi. If you look at the IIT Act and the NIT Act, you can actually do this. if the board approves it, there is no reason why the government will say.
In fact, IIT in Kanpur does have one possibility of using it.
Exactly.
So we are discussing this and soon maybe things will start.
Exactly. So it's the institute, the senate, the director, and then it goes to the board. The board, UOG is convinced that it's actually feasible much more easily in India, especially IITs and NIT system than anywhere else in the world.
Mechanism exists, nothing stops.
For example, like in IIT Kanpur, we have a provision of diploma. Diploma has worked. Was approved in 1970s. Now we are trying to change it.
Absolutely. So I just want to do this because this is becoming very, very popular now for industry people. Right? And I've been on the BOG of both NIT and IIT. I know this is an important aspect that the board looks at. Financial self-sustenance by the institutions. There is a clear demand and supply situation, and this is a possibility that I wanted to put there. Let's look at the AI story. And I talked about how AI is affecting my business. A little bit on how AI is affecting other sciences and engineering. That when I showed you my research areas, I put AI in the middle of my chart. How do you think that this interdisciplinary aspect of getting your faculty in different disciplines, different departments, at least basically familiar with this? We don't teach this in schools. Perhaps we should, at some day we will. Basic statistics, basic machine learning, basic calculus and so on. Tuned towards this way of thinking. So that might happen 10 years from now. Today, there are large numbers of faculty and perhaps doctoral and postdoctoral and even master's students who need this to do research in those areas. Where we are seeing this switch happening, those groups and departments are leapfrogging. That is the nature of this technology. Perhaps over lunch, AK can talk about how that intersection happened in the context of materials engineering in PCS and IIT Kanpur. But there are many more, life sciences, healthcare, electronics. All of them are now exploring this interdisciplinarity. So please push this. Get your incentive schemes or whatever, soft touch things to get people to say, well, this is important. If you do that, then you can publish better, you can get better students. Last couple of points. We talked about TDX. This is a massive trend in every university across the world. What are people doing? I just picked three examples. First, let me take University of Waterloo. University of Waterloo in just outside Toronto has this very interesting program where a student, undergraduate or masters, is encouraged to start a company. And they actually get credits for it. And if they stick with it for the duration, the 4 years or the 2 years, and they're earning credits for it, the faculty and they have an accelerator on campus called Community. I've been there. And it is treated as part of the entire learning process. At the end of the 4 years or 2 years, the startup might be successful, not successful, but they're building that culture in the student as a curricular aspect from day one. Something similar is happening at Cornell also. It's called the Runway Program. So the Cornell Runway Program is slightly different in the sense that the student is encouraged to come up with a startup proposal or a pitch, as they say. A faculty advisor and an industry advisor are mandated. So we have become part of the program as industry advisors. Why? Because I can get to meet smart people, not me personally, but my team in New York and meet them personally. This is in the Cornell New York City campus, not the Cornell Ithaca campus. There's a new campus in New York City on Roosevelt Island. Cornell Tech is called. The Sprint and the Runway programs are engineered for collaboration with industry, academia and student with the context that it's a startup, not learning. So you might like to study these as the next step what people are already doing. And we are engaging with them. CMU Silicon Valley has been doing this for years. We have a Silicon Valley campus which is focused on entrepreneurial faculty and entrepreneurial students, just like Stanford. Stanford, some people say the computer science department especially is now probably more focused on startups than on teaching, but that's the other extreme. So this entrepreneurial thing I think is important. Any thoughts on this?
Tata Institute of Social Sciences also has a program.
Yes, has an incubator. That's a more traditional incubator kind of a, where say, oh, incubator, so you're there. So these are integrated into the curriculum. You get credits, you get faculty support, you get this, that, and if it works, then it's integrated into your degree diploma also. That you are a member of the runway program or the sprint program.
So in Gujarat, almost 30 universities asked to start this. Almost all universities are there. Students start as an innovative. There will be given some fund to nurture the ideas of the student to send them to become a startup.
But true, sir, but is it integrated into the curriculum? That is the.
It will be Saturday, half day. When we have a half day in the university, they have given the facility of tinkering lab.
Tinkering lab. Yeah.
And we are gathering the students. We are going to each and every college, and we are talking to the students who have the innovative ideas.
And you bring industry so that the delta on that.
Very common for India now.
No, sir, but there's a difference. The difference is one, industry involvement. Second is the curriculum credit.
Yes.
So it is not Saturday afternoon, it is part of the curriculum.
Yeah, this is the.
This I think is, as you are saying, disruptive concept. In India, we are having an entrepreneurship, but we have not included it into curriculum.
Yes, this
So
is.
they are not within curriculum.
I think grading system is a good one because they will have profit in that, then they will, lunch into that.
Project work would be linked to this.
Something. I'm sure I said that the mechanisms exist in our system.
Yes.
So instead of labs, you could have this as startup.
There was a news item that IIT Delhi, instead of PhD thesis, they could have a start.
Correct. Yeah, alumni
I don't really know how much is.
We at IIT really have started two activities with this aspect. One is design and innovation hub, and another is design and innovation center. Two activities supported by MHRD.
We have also one program,
And Project Varanasi, wherein people are doing.
So the intention is that government is supporting this thing. So let's put it together and make it something really attractive for the student and the faculty.
Some of the projects have come very well from that.
So that's my.
Sir, I can say it's a moral duty of a teacher. We are teaching, they have no employment. We have to push them towards the start.
Absolutely. It's and you never know because these startups at scale in any area, it could be social startup, it could be finance, it could be technology, whatever. That is not just driving employment, but finding the societal good as well. That's the way I look at it. Thank you.